Good morning, everyone. We will call the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, March 17th to order. Let the record show we are missing two commissioners, Commissioner Bush and Commissioner Karski. First item on our order of business today is to see if there's any changes to the order of business. Mr. Hadley, do we have any changes or additions?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Hearing no changes or additions, I'd look for a motion to approve the order of business as presented.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dukart.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bullinger. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Order of business is approved. The second item on our agenda this morning is the minutes from the previous session of February 24th, 2021. Commissioners, do you have any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion on approving the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our first action item this morning is a flume amendment. This is to consider a future land use amendment, map amendment for a 40-acre site for Dickinson Public Schools to change from a transition flume area with a commercial and industrial designation to a public designation located at 271 34th Street West, including lots 3, 4, and 5 of Block 1 North Industries First Edition within the city of Dickinson, Stark County, North Dakota. Mr. Hadley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to grab an agenda while I talk, but the Dickinson Public Schools was at the City Commission meeting last night for the CTE program. The first two items, obviously separate public hearings. We're going to have to address those separately with public hearings. They're doing a CTE at the old Halliburton site. That's what they're looking at doing, and with the existing zoning, they can't locate there. And so they are doing that. I don't know if someone from Dickinson Public Schools is here.
Oh, we do have somebody in the backs.
Yes. Thank you, sir. But they might want to address it. City staff supports that effort. They're going to a public designation, which would allow them to do all of the uses that they're planning on doing.
Okay.
Oh. I gave one away. Thank you. Thank you.
If the applicant has a representative here that wants to make any comments, you could come up and make comments now. If not, we can move forward.
Yes, that would be great.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Hadley regarding this or the applicant before we open the public hearing? Okay. With that said, we will open the public hearing on this future land use map amendment for Dickinson Public Schools. If you're calling in or watching online, you can call into 701-456-7006, or if you're on the audience, you can step to the podium and state your name.
The conference is currently empty. You will hear silence or music on hold when connected.
Anyone in the audience or anyone online have any comments regarding this future land use map amendment for Dickinson Public Schools? Please step forward.
Mr. Chairman, I think the applicant was going to stand up, but I don't know if he still wanted to or not. It looked like he was in the process of coming up. But
If you have something to say, you can come on up. If not, it's pretty straightforward, I think, but
yeah.
good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name's Keith Harris. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Dickinson Public Schools. I'm not sure exactly what I need to say or that goes beyond the application. As you're aware, Dickinson Public Schools did purchase the 40-acre Halliburton property. Our intention is to transition that from its current use into an educational use, where we would be partnering with the university as well as the other local schools, the Catholic schools and other local school districts in the area to turn that into a CTE center, where our aim for that CTE center is basically three-pronged. First, we want to create relevant educational opportunities, CTE opportunities, for all Dickinson and Stark County and surrounding county students. We want it to benefit all kids. The second one is we want to create programming that is viable for the future. Our goal is to look out the windshield and not in the rearview mirror as we move forward with that CTE center. We want to create opportunities for kids that can prepare them for their future, not for our past. The third one is, and this is critical, we want to create opportunities to develop the workforce that is relevant for Stark County and the surrounding counties moving forward. So we want to work and be very involved with our community, our industry, as to what is it that they're looking for in a future workforce, and use that site to develop that workforce. It's something that we're lacking right now. We're excited about the work that we're doing moving forward. We're excited about our partnership with the university and Trinity to make that a reality. But in order to make that a reality, we need to change the designation of that property from its current use into a public use, which would allow it to be transformed into the educational site. I don't know if you have any questions for me, and I don't know even what I said was appropriate or proper, but thank you for listening.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Harris before Commissioners? Thank you. All right, we will, since the public hearing has opened, we'll ask one more time. Is there anybody in the public that would have any comments regarding this future land use map amendment? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the future land use amendment application FLM-001-21 as depicted in attachment A, as meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Dukart,
I'll second it.
second by Commissioner Franchuk. Any further discussion? Hearing no's, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to item 2 on our agenda this morning. This is a rezone. It says to consider a rezone request for the 40-acre site for Dickinson Public Schools to change from its current transition zoning area from general commercial industrial to public located at 271 34th Street West, lots 3, 4, and 5 of Block 1 North Industries, first edition, within the city of Dickinson, Stark County, North Dakota. Mr. Hadley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This obviously is a follow-up. Future land use map amendment allows them to apply for the rezone request, and this is a rezone request for that same property that they're looking to put the CTE zone, facility on. And then when this is considered and approved, then they would just go through our site planning process and develop the site.
Okay.
But staff hasn't received any comments on this request either.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Hadley before we open the public hearing on this? Okay, hearing none, we will open the public hearing regarding the rezoning request for Dickinson Public Schools for their 40-acre site located in North Industries. If anyone in the public or online has any questions or concerns, please step forward and state them now. If you're calling in or watching online, it's 456-7006. Once again, any comments or concerns regarding the 40-acre rezone request for Dickinson Public Schools? Seeing and hearing none, we will close the public hearing. And commissioners, any more questions or discussion, or I'd look for a motion?
Chairman, I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the rezoning application REZ-003-21 as depicted in Attachment A, as meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Any further discussion regarding this rezoning request? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we will move on to item 3 this morning. This is another future land use map amendment. This is to consider a future land use map amendment for a 9.97 acre site, including Lot 1, Block 1 of the proposed Stable Estates Preliminary Plat, to allow the creation of one common ownership agricultural lot to house a common stable for the development. The lot is located in the east half of Section 8, Township 139 North, Range 96 West, within the City of Dickinson ETZ. Mr. Hadley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. These next 4 items all go together. This future land use map, like you said, does allow them within the proposed preliminary plat to create an agricultural lot that would house a condo stable. And I'll let the applicant kind of explain the concept of that. As we go down the list, then there's a rezone to actually consider that, and then a rezone for the rest of the property. This property is all zoned R1 right now, and so it's a higher density zoning. They're actually looking to go to a lower density use in this area. I have received a couple of comments, just requests as to what the plan is out there, and so I see we have some neighbors here, and I think the applicant can probably explain their sequencing and their plan as we go through these 4 items. But this particular item is just to change that one 9.97 acre R1 site right now, or residential site, to a agricultural designation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hadley. There's someone here for the applicant that would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Andrew Schrank with Highlands Engineering, representing the applicant John Schneider. Mr. Schneider is with us here today as well if there are specific questions for him. As Walter indicated, this first item on the agenda here for us is a future land use map change to allow for the agricultural use. The owner's intention of this future land use map would be to eventually put a common ownership stable lot on this lot. He's looking at a 140 by 240 stable with an indoor riding area currently. So each of those stables could be condoed out and sold to individual owners, and they would have then a common ownership of this entire lot and the indoor riding area. We feel that this could really provide a great amenity to the City of Dickinson, provide a place for people to bring their horses to town that's not currently available in the vicinity of the City of Dickinson, and really meet a market need in this area. It is located on the furthest east side of this property, is our intention. There's kind of a lower lying portion along State Avenue. We understand there are some residences currently along Palm Beach Road, so we've placed this as far east away from those residences as possible. We've placed it in a lower lying area where it'll be less visible. Hopefully those uses will be limited and buffered from them. And we've also looked at this area as it's been agricultural for the past history. There's agricultural to the west, there's agricultural in this area. It really fits the area in our opinion. So with that, I'd open it up to any questions. And
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Schrank? So, you're looking at locating, I'm trying to find the map here again. So it'd be more along State Avenue,
correct, we would be closer to State Avenue.
closer to the greenhouse that's there, kind of?
Further north, so we'd be on a little bit of the northern edge. There's kind of a drainage that runs along the north side of that property. We would be on the south side of that drainage, The north side, if you've seen the preliminary plat, the north side of that road, but along the eastern side of this site.
Okay.
Just to mention too, State Avenue does have a corridor overlay district. So the owner's intention is not just to slap up a barn out here. He wants this to be nice, to be something the city can be proud of. And he will have to follow the city's corridor overlay district standards along State Avenue. So it can't just be a standard metal building. He's going to have to put some aesthetics into this building and make it something nice. No problem.
Surely. This is
It
state.
is.
This would be up in, yeah, right up in here. If you want to pass that down to them. Okay, commissioners, any other questions for the applicant? Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Okay, being that this is a future land use and map amendment, we will have time for public comments here. So at this time, we will open the public hearing regarding the future land use and map amendment for the 9.97 acre tract of Lot 1, Block 1 of the proposed Stable Estates Preliminary Plat. If anybody online or in the audience has any comments or concerns regarding this amendment, please step forward to the podium, state your name, or call into 456-7006.
Good morning. My name is Carmi Howe, and I represent Joe Pasnick, one of the neighbors that lives on Palm Beach Road. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate spot where I should express his objection, so if I should express it another time, let me know, please. The objection my client has to this proposed subdivision involves the location of the proposed access road, which enters Palm Beach Road directly in front of his home. The road would be particularly disturbing to my client's family at night with vehicle headlights shining at his home. In addition, many of the people whose homes are located directly across from the proposed subdivision exit their driveways by backing into Palm Beach Road. The proposed subdivision will increase the traffic on Palm Beach Road and present more safety issues, particularly for those people residing directly across from the proposed subdivision. For these reasons, my client is requesting that the location of the proposed road be changed so that the persons residing in the subdivision will have use of their own road rather than using Palm Beach Road to enter and exit the subdivision, or will be redesigned in such a way that will be less invasive to the neighbors who presently reside on Palm Beach Road across from the subdivision.
Thank you, Ms. Howe. Any questions for Ms. Howe?
So, yes, I have one for you. So you're not objecting to this, other than changing the road?
The road,
Okay,
yes.
I want to clarify.
We have can you show us that location? I don't see it on here, so.
It's right there.
Come on up.
Thanks, Jason.
Good morning.
I too live on Palm Beach Road, 370 Palm Beach Road, and my husband wasn't able to come here today, but our concern was exactly that, like punching into Palm Beach Road and increasing our traffic and having headlights. We didn't know where that punch-in road would be. You know, would it be our house, would it be to house, but it was going to be to somebody's, and increasing the traffic. Other than that, we've discussed it pretty thoroughly, and we think it's a neat idea. You know, we really like the concept. We just don't want the traffic and headlights potentially as the road gets punched into Palm Beach Road. So if they have their own road, I think is what Cammie was saying, perfectly happy with it. I think it's a great idea.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Deb.
Ms. Dragsa.
Deborah Dragsa.
All right, thank you. It's right here.
Can we have Mr. Schneider or Andrew explain if this can be done?
I guess if it's, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with the commission, I'd prefer to defer these comments to our later preliminary plat discussion. This really isn't looking at the road location at this time. We're really looking at the future land use. So if that's okay with the commission, we'd prefer just to defer those comments to that time. If we want to address them now, I'd be open to.
No, that's fine. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else in the audience have any comments or concerns? Please step forward and state your name.
Dan White, I live on 398 Palm Beach Road, right next to Joe's place. And this is besides the road, but aren't we putting the cart before the horse? So to say, we're talking about changing, putting in a stable, when Andrew just said that, that's been agriculture out there ever since I grew up, Palm Beach Road. Now we're talking about putting in a horse stable, but we're not talking about what's going to be mentioned next. That the rest of that agricultural land is going to be, I understand, 32 homes going in there, and the traffic, you know, it's changing Palm Beach Road radically what they're doing, but we're talking about putting in a fancy horse stable first. It's a subdivision is what's going in there. It's not a estates, I guess the way I look at it, but I'm just sitting there like, they should sort of be tied together, shouldn't they? Because that agricultural land that's right to the west of that is going to be changing.
Yeah,
There's going to be homes there.
yeah, and that's coming up in the
Right.
next items. there,
Right, so we're sort of, you know,
Yeah, no problem.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
If I could clarify for you, sir, there's a sequence of process that we have to
That
go
you have
through.
to go through.
Future land use is our long-range plan, and then zoning, and then the preliminary plat. And so the questions on the plat are the last thing we're going to be talking about, so they are a package deal, but we can't just lump them all together. They have to
Right.
be separate motions.
Right.
And just so you're aware, it appears to be agricultural land, but it's actually zoned R1 single family.
Right.
That's also another reason why we're going through these processes to change it. So, just so you
Okay.
know.
Okay. That's as much.
It obviously looks, yes, it
Yeah.
looks like agricultural land.
Thank you, Mr. Hoyt. Anyone else in the audience have any comments or concerns? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Ken Steyer. I live on Palm Beach Road. I got a question about the stable. Is it going to be used for commercial use? Like events brought there? Is it open to the public to where anybody can come into that stable? Does that mean more traffic for us out there too when they bring their horse trailers in and everything? So I want to know if it's going to be used for commercial use.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Steyer. We'll look back to the applicant on that. Clarify.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is not the intention. I don't know that it would never happen where there might be some event in here, but the intention is that, like we said, it'd be a 40-lot stable. Each owner of the association would own their individual stable. That would be their stable. And those owners would then have a common ownership in the entire lot that this stable lies on and an indoor riding arena. So that is not the owner's intention to have commercial events here. Now, if that association decided to host events, that wouldn't really be in his control at this time. It would be that association doing something like that. So that may be something that we could address in his declaration when he creates this condominium association, but that's not the intended use of the stable.
Thank you, Mr. Schrank. That's something we could also address in our conditions.
Right.
Right.
Well, if we get down to the preliminary plat, then what we'll do is address it in the final plat with a DA.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Anyone else in the audience have any comments or concerns regarding this future land use map amendment? Anyone else in the audience? Okay, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners, questions for the applicant or Mr. Hadley? All right, hearing no questions, what are your wishes? I think we've had some concerns regarding the road, where the road comes in, We had some concerns regarding the use of the stable, but I think those would be more appropriately addressed once we talk about the preliminary plat than the land use amendment. So I think those conversations can be had as we get farther through this.
I have, Mr. Chairman, I have one question. So
Sure.
just the condo association people are allowed to use that stable? Is that the intent?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Dukart, that is the intent, is that the ownership would be the people that own a stable would have the use of the indoor riding area. It's not intended to be something the general public can come use. It's intended to be for the use of the people that buy into this association.
All right, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioners, any other questions?
Mr. On, one more.
I move the City of Dickens Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the future land use map amendment of LM 002-20 as depicted in attachment A, as meeting all the requirements of the city municipal code and also in the best interest of public health, safety, and welfare.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the future land use map amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Move on to item 4. This is to consider a rezoning request from R1 to Ag for approximately 9.97 acres for the proposed Lot 1, Block 1 of the proposed stable estates preliminary plat to allow the creation of one common ownership stable lot. This lot is located in the east half of Section 8, Township 139 North, Range 96 West, within the City of Dickinson ETZ. So I guess we're looking now to rezone this piece of property from R1 to Ag, which would actually be a lower designation because the density is higher at R1. Is that correct, Mr.
That's
Hadley?
correct, yes. Yeah, the density is much higher in R1. This corresponds, Mr. Chairman, to obviously the Flume amendment you just heard and amended. So this is the next step in the process, rezoning this particular property to agricultural that would allow that use if it was approved in the preliminary plat.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Commissioners, any questions before we open the public hearing for Mr. Hadley or the applicant? Again, we're looking at just changing the zoning on the piece that we just talked about, so. Okay, seeing none, we will now open the public hearing for the rezoning request. This is any comments or concerns regarding the rezone request from R1 to Ag for the 9.97 acre proposed stable estates preliminary plat. Please step forward, state your name. Or if you're online, you can call in at 456-7006. One more time, anybody in the public or online has any comments or concerns regarding this rezoning request? Okay, hearing none, we will now close the public hearing regarding that. Commissioners?
I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the rezoning application REZ-004-21 as depicted in attachment A as meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dukart. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Cordnoy? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the rezoning request say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to item 5 on our agenda. This is to consider a rezone request from R1 to RR, which is rural residential, for approximately 42.33 acres, including all of blocks 1, 2, and 3 of the proposed stable estates preliminary plat, accepting lot 1, block 1, to allow for the creation of 31 rural residential 1 acre plus lots located in the east half of Section 8, Township 139 North, Range 96 West within the City of Dickinson ETZ. Mr. Hadley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This obviously is the remainder of the site on that plat, and it's changing the zoning from R1 to RR to allow the 1 acre lots that they desire. Now, they could create the 1 acre lots in R1, but their desire is to keep that, have that zoning over the top of it, so it requires 1 acre lots minimum, so it fits into the neighborhood. So it is the remainder of the site that's not included in the stable. And so when we talk about those lots and blocks, when we say it's proposed, those don't exist yet, but it's just a reference, so when you look at the plat, obviously the 42 acres encompasses all the lots except for that agricultural lot.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Hadley before we open the public hearing on this? Mr. Schrank, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Andrew Schrank with Highlands Engineering. As Walter has stated, this site is currently zoned R1 single-family development. We're actually reverting back to a rural residential. So although this use today is very agricultural out there, it's very open, without this hearing, we could be moving forward with small, roughly 8,000 square foot lots. That is not our intention. We don't feel that fits this area. We want to match the surrounding development better. So we're looking to rezone this back to a rural residential to better match our development desires and the surrounding development. So that would restrict us to 1 acre is the minimum lot size that we can do instead of, like I had said, what's roughly 8,000 or so, which is allowed today. We've heard some concerns with traffic that this development is going to bring, but again, we're reducing the density significantly by making this zone change from what's allowed today. So with that, I'd take any questions you may have.
Yeah, on 40 acres, how many lots could you do in R1?
We're looking around 31 is what we have on the plat currently.
And if you did an R1 development?
If we did an R1, you'd be well over 50, probably double the lots out there for sure, so.
Thank you, Mr. Schrank.
Which way are those homes going, whatever you build next to Palm Beach Road, which way are they going to face? Are they going to face Palm Beach Road, or are they going to face the other way?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yep.
The Palm Beach Road lots would face Palm Beach Road. I believe there are 10 or 11 that would be along Palm Beach Road and would have driveways off of Palm Beach Road. The remaining roughly 20 lots would have access from a proposed subdivision road that would be routed through this development.
That road you got right now on that map faces right into my living room. There's ways where you have to go, you got to approach your original approach going to the house now, that testing house. Why can't you put that road in the back of the lots? You got crap lots in there.
Mr. Chairman, again, if we could defer the access point to the preliminary plat, that would be our preference. We're talking the zone change today if we're okay with the densities, in this item. So we prefer to defer those to the plat discussion if we can.
Commissioners, is that okay with you guys?
Yes.
Everyone? All right.
The next one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Schrank. Commissioners, any questions?
Let me look at that, Jason.
Oh, sorry. Any questions for the applicant or Mr. Hadley regarding this?
Maybe we could lay a map up there so the public could see what.
Yeah,
exactly.
if you want to put that
That'll
up
come on
there.
the plot. We'll address that today.
Okay. At this time, then, we will now open the public hearing on this rezoning request. This public hearing is to consider a rezone request from R1 to RR for the approximately 42.33 acres including all of blocks 1, 2, and 3 of the proposed stable preliminary plat. Anyone in the public or online have any questions or concerns regarding this rezone request, please step forward to the podium and state your name, or call into 456-7006. Anyone in the audience or online? Good morning.
My name is Joe Pasnick. Right here where this road comes in, right into my living room, there is ways that go to the south there where you got the water line, existing water line from Patterson Ocean or Patterson Lake that the city has. And they want to keep that line. They can put that approach going that way. There's an empty lot that nobody has built because of the water line. Or they can go back in between here, behind these front lots, and come back out on Palm Beach Road where the MDU and a lot north of there has their transformers and stuff in the ditch where you can't build.
So that would solve your problem, but would that affect somebody, would that affect another homeowner then?
Well, they just turn, or either they should put a cul-de-sac in there.
But I don't think by our, this is too many lots for a cul-de-sac if I'm correct.
So the distance is not.
For fire protection and everything.
It actually helps their access at Palm Beach too, for emergency access, by having it go through.
Yeah. Because this would exit out on State Avenue, correct?
Mm-hmm. Right. By the nursery there.
Who bought, can you tell me who bought this property?
I would imagine this gentleman right next to you.
What is your name? John Schneider. It's not gonna be a lot, something like this you have over on State and 8th Avenue now, abandoned. To
Where?
start something and leave. That property that's on State Avenue, along State Avenue and 8th, going to the golf course, that was all developed and that's all abandoned.
Well, I understand your
Let's
concern.
hope this, and I understand he doesn't want to put no Southwest water into there. Everybody, they can put in 32 wells for 32 lots. I can see their own sewer.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't got to those details yet with engineering, but Mr. Hadley, do you have any comments?
I think when we talk about the plat, which is, that's up there for reference right now. Right now, we're just talking about a zone change to allow them, and actually they're lessening the density that they can actually do there. So they're trying to mimic or shadow what you have on Palm Beach Road as far as lot sizes. So that's really what we're talking about right now at this moment. The next item we'll talk about in the plat, talk about the actual lots and the configuration and the access and sewer and water and all that stuff.
I mean, just for clarity.
I'm against this road going into my living room.
Right. And I would suggest that
I don't think any of you people would want to have lights coming into you 24 hours a day, which that probably will be. Going in and out into that lot. And then coming across out to State Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pasnick. Just for clarity, I think that everyone needs to understand that this currently is already zoned R1. That means they could put 8,000 square foot lots in there. By changing the zoning to rural residential, it requires them to put a minimum of a 1 acre lot in. It cannot be smaller than 1 acre in rural residential. So it's actually reverting to less density than it is already approved for. I don't know that if you're not happy with 29 lots or 31 lots, you'd be happy with 58 lots or 55 lots with a bunch of small little houses in there. And that's what is already approved for. I know it's been a farm yard for 40 years, but Well, yeah, okay, I was just, you know, 60 years then, but it's just, when somebody has their property, they have the right to develop it. And we're here to try to accommodate everybody in the audience that has a place out there, plus accommodate the homeowner to do what he would like to do with his property. And it's sometimes not totally possible to get everybody to be happy, but we try to do our best. So,
There's options for that road, there's, where that water line goes, you can put a basement in there, you can put footings in there because you got a water line down
and that's something we can
there.
discuss.
South of there.
Yeah.
They can put the approach going out that way, to meet the other approach.
All right. Anyway, to finish up this public hearing, any other comments or concerns regarding this rezoning request, please step forward. Mr. Steyer.
On this road here, since I've lived in Palm Beach Road about 20 years.
Yep.
And in the last 10 years, we have a lot of younger couples out there now, a lot more children on that road. We have no sidewalk out there on that road. So there's a lot of people walking on that road every day, and people pushing buggies with kids in them and everything, and little kids riding their bikes. We're going to put 14 more driveways, according to what I heard here just a second ago, that they're going to put access to the homes that face Palm Beach Road, 14 more driveways to back into Palm Beach Road. That's going to be a problem for traffic out there.
Is it 9 or is it 14?
There's 14, there's 9 and 2 more on the other end, and like 11, I think, total.
It's right there in front of you, yeah.
10,
Yeah.
to 10.
And then there's 2 more down here, there's 10, and there's 2 more on the other end, if you look at it here. I counted 12.
Okay.
Okay, but we're putting 12 more driveways into Palm Beach Road, and all those kids that are riding their bicycles out there, we may have to address putting a sidewalk in along Palm Beach Road or something, to where these kids can ride their bikes. And we have a lot more traffic out there. And if you're on a nice sunny day, that road's pretty full of kids walking, you have to be very careful. And in front of Joe's place, that's a high-speed area, because that's where it's straight, that's where everybody's, the most high speed is in front of Joe's place, where you want to put this road. So I'd advise that we look at the road. If we're going to put 14 more driveways, I'll oppose this development on the Palm Beach Road. If they put the road facing the other way, where they keep the traffic into the development, that would be fine by me. Is this road going to be paved? Is it going to be hard surfaced, or is it going to be dust?
It'd be paved.
Is there any covenants for this thing yet that they're developing? Have any covenants been set? What kind of homes can be built? What can be moved in?
There will be. The plat itself, this preliminary plat, they'll have to come back. If this is approved, then they'll come back with a final plan, and then they'll have the development agreement, which locks them into doing the roads and whatnot, and also their covenants that show what they're going to regulate there. So this is just the first look at it.
But we just want to know what the first look is like, so we can approve it or not, or if we are in favor of it, you know what I'm saying? If you're going to put a bunch of junk out there, like some developments turn into be, we don't want it, you know? And then on the stable, how many horses can each person have? We used to belong to something like this in another town, and it got to be a mess, because all of a sudden, one guy has 6 horses, one guy has 1 horse, and then it got to be a real mess. Who's in it? Maintenance and all of that came up to an issue. Okay. So that's what I like.
They will need to meet all the health district standards for it.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. And I don't know if you want to address those concerns that he had now, or if you want to wait till the plat part, but Mr. Schrank?
Yeah, I think, again, many of those would be appropriate to address in our next phase here. With the stable, our plan is you would have individual stable just for single horse along the perimeter of the riding area. So they wouldn't be able to have 3 or 4 horses in these stables. It would be 40 would be the number of the stable that we currently have planned, so.
Okay. Thank you. Mr.
Chairman,
Oh,
Andrew,
sorry.
Stark County has a stipulation per acreage, how many large animals you can have.
Correct, and it's fairly high. And this would actually fall under the ETZ, so we'd fall under the city's zoning on those requirements anyways, so.
I think it's 1.5 acres per large animal.
And that's
which is a
for
horse.
grazing, you're right. We're not looking at grazing here, we're looking at feeding and stabling the horses, so, correct.
And they cannot hook up to Southwest Water, or is that a?
That is not true, no. There is Southwest Water on each side of this property. The lots along Palm Beach Road would hook directly into Southwest Water right in the front of their lot. The intention would be to run a new Southwest Water line through our proposed roadway to tie in the remaining lots. Septic, however, would be private septic drain fields on each lot.
Is there any chance that the Because you're in the ETZ zone, is there any chance the city could have everyone hook up to wastewater?
It's a challenge on this property. The nearest sewer is on Broadway under the overpass or in Camp on the Heart to the east. Camp on the Heart has a lift station in their property, so we'd have to somehow connect to them, check the capacity of that lift station, and see if it could handle this development. Getting to Broadway, again, we're probably looking at pumping to Broadway, and would be fairly costly and a challenge to make that connection. And that's part of the reason we went to this rural feel, is the challenges of serving this development with public utilities.
Then the other question is septic. I don't know how you'd work a drain field, or they would have to be a certain septic that, a large septic tank that they can't have a drain field?
Nope, each of these lots would have a drain field. We've done soil geotechnical analysis. The lots are actually very, very sandy material out here, which is ideal for drain fields. The Southwest District Health, who would be the governing agency for those drain fields, requires just 1 acre minimum when you plat lots and have a private septic. So that's another reason we've gone to this rural residential, to allow for the private drain field. The 1 acre minimum meets health code requirements for private septic systems as well. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, anyone else in the public have any concerns? Mr. Pasnick?
The water line that's comes down on Palm Beach Road now is just a 2-inch water line. There's times where we have the ones that are on Southwest Water. Not everybody's on Southwest Water, but they have the opportunity to get eventually. I don't think they can connect any more to that than what it is now.
I would imagine you've talked to Southwest Water regarding this, so there must be capacity.
Mr. Chairman, if I may make a quick comment, just for the public, because I feel like we're getting a lot of these questions. And Mr. Hadley, please correct me if I'm wrong at any time here. This is just preliminary. There's nothing that's been said here this morning that's set in stone. Mr. Hadley, as they work through this process with the applicant, will be opportunities for the public to comment on this project moving forward. So it's not as if it's starting today and this is what it's going to look like. There will be opportunities along the way through the process, the legal process, for the public to continue to comment on these items as the development moves forward. And they will be brought before this board for further discussion. So there will be additional opportunities for input from you. So, and again, Mr. Hadley will notice those issues and continue to ask those questions of the applicant and the developer. So hopefully that will ease some concerns here. Again, as Mr. Hadley said, this is just preliminary, just to kind of get that ball rolling so that they can come back with additional information for the public to continue to move forward with the development. So just my additional comments there.
Christina?
Just to add, just to make sure, and thanks Christina for clarification, the future land use amendments and the zone changes are our final requests when those go to the city commission. The preliminary plat, when we get to that, when we actually get to that discussion, as Christina said, it's a schematic right now. It's an idea. It's a refined idea of where this is going. What we're hoping to do is take obviously us, the applicant, take input, go back when they come back in for a final plat, revise it to the best we can to meet all the concerns, and then have another public hearing at that point that the planning commission would then recommend that to the city commission, yay or nay. So just, I think that might help a little bit.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make one comment for
Sure,
Mr. Pasnick. Cul-de-sacs are not recommended because the fire department has a problem getting into the backside. I live on one, and I know what it's like when they shut your street down. You have no access to get in or out. You'll have to walk. So that's a good thing you're not doing a cul-de-sac, because I would not vote for it.
Thank you, Mr.
Well, and it also provides, Commissioner, it provides another access to Palm Beach Road for emergency services, because right now there's one.
you know, in that road that goes to Palm Beach, since they did the overpass, it's not a good turn anyway. I really wish that they would do a different road totally in there, because you come right off and then you gotta go this way to Palm Beach, or you gotta go around to the park. It's not a good access road at all.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in the audience before we close the public hearing on this zone request?
Hi, my name is Bob Clem. I have a house just kitty corner to that stable area that they have. And I don't know if this is proper to bring it up right now, but I have 2 empty lots. And I don't want that to become like, let's say, there's nobody living there, there's no house there, we can put a road there. I just want to make sure they know that already it seems like the utilities have been dumping on that because there's nobody there, because they didn't want to upset other people that have houses. So I just want to make sure that you know that just because it's an empty lot doesn't mean that's going to be a free pass to put a road or something there. If you
And you own them, you said?
Pardon?
You own the lots?
Yes.
So yeah, we obviously would have to work with you.
No, I mean across from it. You know what I'm saying? Like what Joe was saying, like he didn't want the headlights coming into his property. And I'm just saying that since my 2 lots don't have houses on them, that it's not a free pass to say, well, we're not going to be putting lights in somebody's space, but it could be developed later, and I don't want that to be a problem for me later on.
Sure.
Good point.
I understand. Thank you.
Right, and I want to look at this because I haven't seen this yet at all. So if I wanted a copy of this,
Yeah, we can surely get you one.
okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience with regards to this rezoning request? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant, or Mr. Hadley, or any further discussion? Hearing none, what are your wishes?
Chairman, I don't have an agenda. Are we on REZ
I think it's this one,
R1 to R,
or this.
Yeah, it's on.
5. We did the first one.
I move that the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the rezoning application REZ-005-21 as depicted in attachment 8, meeting all requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion, commissioners? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the rezoning request, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we will move on to item 6. This is to consider a preliminary plat for the Stable Estates to create 31 rural residential 1 acre plus single-family lots and 1 9.97 acre agricultural common ownership lot for the shared stable area. The site includes a total of approximately 52 acres and is located in the east half of Section 8, Township 139 North, Range 96 West, within the City of Dickinson, ETZ. Mr. Hadley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, this is where we will talk about the preliminary plat that's up on the podium and moving forward with it and any of the design questions. This has gone through all the agencies involved, and for a preliminary plat, it's received the concurrence approval to move forward. You see in your staff report that there's a number of conditions that they have to meet to move forward. So with that, I think that probably Andrew probably could address in more detail some of the comments that have already been made, and we can take public testimony from there.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Mr. Schrank.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. As Mr. Hadley said, this is the preliminary plat discussion now. Again, going to the one large agricultural lot along the north side that would contain the proposed stable that we previously discussed. 31 proposed rural residential lots at this time, all of them being 1 acre plus. As we stated, they would be served by Southwest Water with private septic drain fields. We would have a proposed road connecting through the system, through the subdivision. That would be a rural section meeting Stark County standards, and it would be paved likely with asphalt. The connection point of that is somewhat movable, I'll say. When considering these large 1 acre lots, our options are really limited. We only have so much room to work with within these constraints. We have existing easements through this property. We have an existing residence through this property. There's existing topography. We can't necessarily just pick and choose the best location for that because we have a lot of other factors that we need to take into consideration when laying out this road. We've tried to lay that road out to allow for development of, I guess if you look at what's block 2, lots 4 through 6, those are roughly 1 acre river frontage lots. If that road goes further south, those lots become a challenge, and we have essentially wasted inaccessible property down there. If we go further north, we are limited with property to the north. We want to retain that existing residence. So I'm not saying there's no room to move this road, but we're probably looking 50 feet north or south is maybe the room that we have to try to find the best location to try to make people as happy as we can. Cul-de-sacs, I think if you guys have already discussed, very challenging with this site. Typically, fire code restricts us to 600 feet to the center of that cul-de-sac. So we couldn't even get to the center of this property with a dead-end cul-de-sac road. And there's also restrictions on the number of residences. Once you get over 30 residences, you have to have 2 access points. So really, if you look at all the residences on Palm Beach Road, I understand the safety concerns, the traffic concerns, but when you look at this from an emergency access and safety standpoint, we're providing quicker response. We're providing that second access. If there ever was something that happened on Palm Beach Road that shuts that road down, we now have a second access to get to these people and provide their safety needs. So we feel we're providing a safer environment for them. As far as the driveways off of Palm Beach, we're looking at a maximum of 10 new driveways. I was just discussing with the owner, we would be open to some shared driveways. If you look at the existing residence, that has a driveway currently. If the city's open to it, he indicated lots 3 and 5, potentially they could have access off of that existing driveway. I think there's options if the city is open to private easements to those lots, to serve those lots, without having that frontage on Palm Beach Road, we'd be open to combining some of those, and we could work through that with staff through the final plat process. I do have several comments too. We did receive the staff report. If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind just going through those comments, the ones that we have some issues with or concerns with. Find the right sheet here. Comment number 1, the second sentence in there states that the stormwater plan should include a plan to address animal waste and a separate system to control runoff from the stable lot. That is very vague at this point. We're not exactly sure what that means and where that requirement's coming from. We will have that system meet all state and local requirements, and I guess anything above that we're not comfortable with at this time. I'm not saying we wouldn't agree to that, but we'd prefer just to say that that lot will meet all state and local requirements rather than having a separate system that we're not really sure what the design parameters of that system are at this time.
Mr. Hadley?
The intent of that condition is that it gets addressed. So, as this is a preliminary plat, it doesn't go forward to the city commission. It puts the applicant on notice to actually come up with a solution for final plat.
So
you're
fine with his language then?
We can amend it. It's just that everybody needs to know that obviously there's stable, there's waste, there's other things there. You've got 40 horses on one lot. So there's going to be more of an impact than there is obviously now. So, and we don't want to mix that with the stormwater in the road ditches.
And you'd like it to say what?
We'd prefer that it just meets state and local requirements. We will follow all state provisions, we'll follow all local provisions, but anything above that, we don't feel is appropriate as part of this plat process. Through our site plan and all that, we'll have to work through how that waste is controlled once this stable actually comes forward. But this plat really isn't tied to the stable directly. That would follow up in a separate site plan that would need to come forward with a building permit, with a plan for water, with a plan for sewer. So we'd prefer not to have that tied to our plat, is our preference.
Commissioners, do you have any concerns? I think if it says to meet all state and local guidelines, I don't have any issue with that.
And then moving forward, number 2, we shall provide an accurate location on the plat and adjust the proposed lots prior to final plat submittal, taking into consideration the location of the 2 non-potable water lines owned by the city. So this is something we've been working through as city staff. There is 2 water lines with an existing easement that run kind of kitty corner through this property. It's the old Patterson Lake water lines that used to serve the city when that was used for water to the city. We've been working through that with city staff. Originally, we were hoping to vacate that. Staff indicated that's not something they're taking into consideration. So we are working around that. However, in our submittal, some of the old data that we had, some GIS data show that those lines don't necessarily fall within that easement. We have no idea how accurate that data was, so we've been coordinating with staff on how to address that. At this time, we're proceeding forward assuming that they are within that easement and assuming that the city's rights to that water line lie solely within the existing easement. The city is out there this week trying to locate and find where that line exactly is. If that line is found to be outside that easement, I can't say whether or not we would allow that use. We've put a lot of time and money and effort into this current layout. If it's reasonably close to the easement, I think we can work with the city to come to terms, but if it drastically changes our subdivision layout here, or it falls and makes lots unbuildable, we have to reconfigure, re-engineer, replat, that's a significant amount of time and money that we don't have at this time to relay out this subdivision. So again, I don't know if we're necessarily against that term, but I can't say for sure that we are going to come to an agreement if that water line does not fall within its existing legal easement.
Mr. Chairman?
Where are you talking, Andrew?
Condition number 2, as far as the easement?
Yeah, where is it on the plat here?
It begins at the west side of Lot 2, Block 2, runs through Lot 1, Block 2, through just the southeast corner of Lot 10, through the kind of the middle of Lot 11, and then kind of runs out to State Avenue through our stable lot and the north side of Lot 1.
Yeah, I see it.
Andrew, when you're saying you're working with the city, are you working with the city water department or the city inspectors or the city engineer? What does that mean?
It's been city staff, mainly city engineering, Loretta Marshak at city engineering. And as I say, city is out there trying to make sure where that line actually falls, and that will help address some of these concerns. We just don't know where that line is today. So if it's 100 feet outside that easement and it cuts through half of our lots and makes them unbuildable, we have a lot of work to do to accommodate that water line that I don't know if we're willing to do at this point. If it's within a reasonable distance of this easement and it doesn't affect our current layout, I think we can work with the city easily and come to terms on that water line. So again, I feel like that's not necessarily something that should be tied to this plat. The city has an easement. We'll work around the current easement, but if that line does not fall within that easement, it's a separate issue, I think, outside of this plat that needs to be addressed.
Christina, any comments on that?
I have one initial question. Is the easement currently in use?
Correct. There's 2 water lines. It was back in the 50s, like I say, when they put in the Patterson Lake Reservoir that fed from Patterson Lake to the city treatment plant. As I understand, those lines are not used today, but they are a reserve emergency water line for the city.
Okay. My initial thought would be is if they weren't in use and the city had no intent to continue to use them, they potentially could be vacated, but In the event that the city was going to use them for a reserve line, then obviously we would have to make accommodations depending on the width and the use, potentially that could raise a potential issue there. So for sure, we would have to know where they were located. So I think it sounds like city staff is on board with getting that taken care of. So without that, it would be hard to say.
I'm running to the front, so you must have.
Good morning, Mr. Friedrich and Commission. Just to add to Andrew's comments, we did locate those lines yesterday, I believe. There's two lines, I think a steel line and an AC line that we located. One of the things, that was the original intakes from Patterson Lake to the water treatment plant. And when this started, there is a current easement. I guess we felt that we didn't want to disband that easement right away just as a backup for possible drawing water from Patterson Lake. So we did find it yesterday. Hopefully it's within the easement. I guess even if it's not within the easement, I would like to keep the easement just as possible access to Patterson for the city. And that was kind of the intent, to keep that availability to pull water from Patterson Lake if needed in the future.
Mr. Schrank, any other concerns you have?
No, I think that makes sense, and we're agreeable to keeping the current easement. I think what I'm saying is we can't say for sure if the water line does not fall in that easement that we're agreeable to the new location. So if it falls 100 feet outside that line, I guess we'll leave the easement in place, and if the city needs to, you can put that line within your easement where you already have the legal rights to put that line.
And I think I would agree with Mr. Schrank. I don't know the condition of the existing line, so we don't use it now. So I think as long as we have access, if it does fall within the easement, that's great. If it doesn't, I think just keeping that availability to put a pipeline in or get water from Patterson would be good. Because I don't know the condition of the whole line currently.
Okay.
So that'd be good.
Agreeable?
Thank you. Number 4, the applicant shall provide a development agreement for all public improvements and include a scope of work for completion of both public and private stable site improvements. We're generally agreeable to a development agreement. Again, I don't know the terms of that agreement. We've gone several different ways with ETZ development. There's really no city public infrastructure in this development. There's nothing the city would own, nothing the city would maintain. So in our opinion, I don't know that a city development agreement is necessarily appropriate for public improvements. And there's also a statement here about private stable site improvements. We don't feel private improvements are appropriate in a development agreement either. So I think we can come to terms on that, but again, without seeing that agreement, what the city's terms are, it's hard to say at this time. I believe there's some discussion of surety as well. Again, I don't know that a surety with the city is appropriate for a road and public improvement that the city does not plan to take ownership of, that will never be, for the foreseeable future, turned over to the city. This would remain a county road. So I don't know that a surety, in our opinion, is appropriate as part of that agreement.
Again, Ms. Wanko?
If I could jump in real quick, and then I'll let her respond. The DA would then outline, and you would propose the DA, so you would propose the language of the DA. The public improvements, we're still tasked with requiring those public improvements to be put in the county. And it's the only surety that those public improvements would be put in to that spec for the county, working with them. So if you want to do a DA with the county, then that would be fine as well. But somehow we have road networks all over the place in the city and the ETZ that weren't followed through with. And so the idea or the mechanism that the DA gives us is the ability to ensure that those public improvements, which they are public improvements, so I mean we're looking out for the public good, that roadway and those improvements, stormwater improvements, whatever they are actually put in to that spec and accepted by Stark County in this particular case. So that's the intent.
I believe that's acceptable. Again, the surety is probably the biggest concern. And our preference would be, we don't want a development agreement. You have our development agreement essentially, is we would prefer not to have one. So if there is terms the city has, we'd prefer if you could propose those to us, and we can go from there. But as far as us putting a development agreement ourselves and giving you our terms, I think you have what we would like to see for a development agreement today. So if that's agreeable, I think hopefully we can come to terms on that, and I think we can. We'd prefer not to tie it to private site improvements. I think limiting that to public improvements would be appropriate as well.
I guess I don't understand why we would require it on private improvements. If we're not taking ownership in it, I'm not sure I understand.
Commissioner Frederick, I guess I'd have to work and look with Mr. Hadley on that to understand exactly what you're looking for there. Commonplace, obviously, with any development, the city has always done development agreements. To Mr. Shank's point with regard to that, as far as the surety is concerned, I believe the gentleman in the back had mentioned something to the effect, well, we want to make sure that these projects get done. So that is the way that we can ensure that happens. As Mr. Hadley had indicated, that has not happened in the past in some developments. So with regard to that, I think we would need to see, to Commissioner Frederick's point, what exactly you're looking to do as far as the public versus private improvements, and then working with staff to determine what would be appropriate. The main concern, I think, for the city and for the applicant as well, is to just understand in writing in some capacity what the obligations of both parties, so that in the end, when it's all said and done, it's clearly understood what your responsibility is, what the city's responsibility is. And if that looks something other than a development agreement, I suppose that's possible. But that's the purpose of the agreement, obviously, is to fully understand what the city is going to be responsible for and what you're going to be responsible for. So maybe that's just some further discussion with staff to finalize what exactly that looks like.
My only concern would be is I don't want you to put in 300 feet of road and then sell those lots, and then 2 years later come in and put another 300 feet of road in and sell 3 lots. I mean, so that would be the only thing that I could see why we would need a development agreement saying the road has to be in prior to you starting to sell lots in the interior of this. I mean, that would be my issue.
Understood.
I don't want it to be developed in 12 phases. If you're going to do it, then we want the road in before you start building or selling lots.
Understood, Mr. Chairman. I think we can come to terms on that, and I think we can come to an agreement with the city on that.
And once again, this is a preliminary plat.
Right.
So when we fast forward and we're talking about the final plat, and we know all the final details on this, then we will have all of those details in a development agreement to work out. So it's the precursor of making sure everybody's aware that this is where we're going.
And I'm not sure what stormwater requirements are going to be. I mean, I would imagine this is going to be a road with a ditch, so.
Correct.
So, I mean, it's not like we're putting in ponds and lift stations or whatever to haul, or stormwater sewer, so.
Correct.
So I would imagine that could be pretty minor, to work through. I mean, I think our only concern would be is that you build the road to county specs and it's approved. I mean, that's my only concern. And it's not built in phases. It's built all at once before you start selling lots in here, so.
Understood.
Are you talking about number 9? No, number 9 on the.
No, we're talking about 4, I think. Just the development.
9, it addresses that too.
Yeah.
Correct. Those two are somewhat tied comments there.
Yeah, so that would be my only concerns. As far as the surety, I'm sure that can be worked out too between staff and you.
Understood.
So.
Number 5 it indicates the applicant shall obtain approach permits from Stark County for all lots planned to access off of Palm Beach Road. We've discussed that a little bit with planning, and I believe they're agreeable to changing applicant to applicant or future developer. This applicant does not intend to put those approaches in or tie them to a certain location. He would sell these lots when they get ready to build their home. Yeah. They would apply for their own approach. So we prefer not to have that tied to our applicant.
I mean, typically when you pull a building permit, you have to apply for the approach permit.
Correct.
So, yeah, I don't have an issue with
Where
that.
and just to clarify, where that would come into play, though, is if we're going to do common drives, then those should be looked at by Stark County and approved, and then you're locked into where those are going to be.
Well, and then we can
So-
address that. If there's any common driveways that you'd have to get
And I think we
Elheiser
could-
to get approved, I don't have an issue with that.
Correct.
So,
Number 6, maybe just for the commissions, we don't have an issue with that comment. I just wanted to bring this to your attention. There is an existing residence with several outbuildings on this site. This is something we've worked through with staff a fair amount to allow for your accessory use or your accessory structure code to be met. The only one that currently would not meet that is the lot that contains the proposed residence. There's 2 garages on that lot, and they would slightly exceed the allowable square footage for an accessory structure based on our current lot size. So our intention is that if we move forward with this preliminary plat, this gets approved, we would follow up with a variance request for that lot to allow those existing structures to remain on that lot with the new platted boundary in the area that's allowed. So again, no issue with that, just wanted to bring that to your attention on what that's indicating.
I think that would be the proper, variance request would be the proper way to go about that. so.
If the variance gets denied, for whatever reason, we'd look to essentially be stuck demolishing one of those prior to final plat approval.
Okay, sounds good.
Moving down to number 9, the applicant can propose to do the final plat in phases. I think we've addressed that one already adequately. Number 10, the applicant can't apply for final plat until the flume and zone change requests are approved by the city. Really, we'd prefer if this was not the case. If you looked at the legal descriptions in our flume and our zone change, it was Lot 1, Block 1 of Stable Estates Edition. So really, we're looking to move this forward almost concurrently. That legal description doesn't exist without our plat, and there's a chance, as we discuss the road and all this, that the boundaries of that Lot 1, Block 1 might slightly change. So it feels a little premature to approve those without knowing the final direction of the plat. And that could postpone some of our applications in the future. So I'm not sure what the reason for that condition is or why that condition's there, but we'd almost see it, that's not an appropriate.
Why can't they make applications?
Well, they can make application, it's just that, just like this process, the flume needs to be approved before the zone change. The zone change needs to be approved before the final plat can be approved. So they can
No,
be, when we get to the final plat and it goes to the city commission, we could take it as flume, zone change, and final plat. But those timelines aren't going to coincide. The next time that they're going to be here for a final plat would be in May. And the time frame for these zone changes and flume amendments would be done in April. So, I mean, I don't know that that's a huge issue, except for the legal descriptions of where those boundaries are. So if they change, then...
Mr. Chairman, I guess if we could just reword that, then I think this states that we can't apply for the final plat if we say the final plat cannot be approved.
Considered.
I think that would be our preference. The final plat can't be approved until the flume and zone change are approved. If we're allowed to apply for that and move forward with the final plat, I think it's a non-issue.
Okay, anyone have any issues with that? Change? Okay.
I believe the final one I had here, number 13, the applicant shall elevate all lots and building sites out of the BFE to meet the intent of the City of Dickinson floodplain requirements. Again, we'd prefer to reword this or eliminate this comment. It is not the applicant's responsibility to elevate all lots outside the floodplain. If he chooses to sell lots with a portion of that lot in the floodplain, that's fine. It meets all FEMA and local requirements. So again, I think it's a wording item here. We don't intend to elevate all lots fully out of the floodplain. We will likely make a building pad for each lot that's elevated, but that would really be up to how he wants to market these lots and future homes. Those FEMA requirements are really tied to structures, not land.
I mean, it does read that we would have to elevate the whole 1 acre lot out of the floodplain. I don't know that that's really necessary.
Well, I don't know that it's necessary, but you typically, if you're going to have, and we know on record that there's going to be new floodplain requirements that are going to come in, and it will affect this particular site. Engineer Marshik, I mean, is here. I maybe like to have her address the fact that,
I mean-
we could identify building envelopes on these lots, but I don't know that they're ready to do that either. They probably would be maybe at final plat
I mean,
stage.
typically you elevate the area where the structures are gonna go.
But you're still, for lenders, if a portion of your lot is in the floodplain, they probably will still require you to get flood insurance. So are we doing justice to whoever owns those properties or whoever buys those lots and builds homes and then sells them off? Are we doing justice to them by not addressing this now? Because they would get flood.
You just have a site location to your floodplain people. I mean, I don't know that there's ever been a requirement in a rural lot that you have to have every inch of it out of the floodplain.
Basically, President Frederick, Commissioners, this will be something that we work through as we go forward with this. Mr. Schrank's aware of the new firm mapping that's coming forward that changes some of the floodplain. That's been noted on the drawings. I think what staff wants to do is just make sure that we continue to work forward so that as homes come up for sale, lots come up for sale, they're aware when they come in to do their building application that they need to look at that to help for lending purposes so that it doesn't cause problems with flood insurance requirements when somebody goes to get a mortgage. The lot itself doesn't have to be fully raised out of it. You're correct on that point. I think it's just an item that's noted here so that we don't lose sight that there is floodplain in the area or potential floodplain on these new risk maps, and we want to make sure that that moves forward. I'm sure the applicant would like to make sure that that's shared also as you move forward. You don't want to get to a point where you're selling lots and all of a sudden somebody can't get funding because the home is proposed to be built too low and now you need flood insurance.
Mr. Schrank, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I guess we will follow all FEMA and local requirements, and again, I think that's how we'd prefer for this to be worded. This simply sets boundary lines. If he chooses to sell a lot in the floodplain and somebody buys that lot down the road, which isn't our intention, don't get me wrong, it's not this developer's responsibility. He could market that at $10,000 instead of $100,000, and they know that they have $90,000 of earthwork to put into that lot. They have to elevate that. It shouldn't be tied to this applicant, I guess, is our opinion. If you look at, for example, Lot 3, Block 2, we likely would not fill the southern edge of that lot. There already is an elevated portion of that lot where you could have a buildable portion for a home. It doesn't require anything, but the way that code is written, or the way that condition is written, it's saying we would have to fill the south half of that lot where there's no intention of ever building. So I think if we could reword that somehow, it would be more appropriate for what we're looking at. Again, Lot 4, Block 2, you've got a floodplain running through kind of the middle of that lot. There's still room on the north side to put a residence. We may or may not be filling the floodplain through that lot. And to Mr. Hadley's point, we'd prefer not to be guessing on building pads or any of that. These are large lots, lots of room to build a house. We'd like to leave that to the individual owner on where they want to build their residence. They can remove the floodplain requirements by simply doing an elevation cert. They hire a surveyor to come out, survey the low adjacent grade. That needs to be elevated above the floodplain. That gets submitted to FEMA, and that can remove the flood insurance requirements. But that cannot happen until a structure is done unless we do a post-construction, a survey of this lot and revise the floodplain, which I don't know that we plan to do at this point. So.
Ms. Marshak?
I think the process that Andrew is mentioning, it's just something that we as staff have to make sure that we are aware of as we get to building permits and those homes are coming in. We don't have anything in our code that states that they have to come in as a developer and remove that floodplain. That would be something that each individual property owner would
potentially have to do if they wanted it removed. So the fact that it's showing up on the preliminary plat is actually helpful for staff as we move forward.
And, I mean, anyone applying for a building permit would have to submit a site plan to us also. I mean, we're not gonna
Correct.
allow them to just
The
plop
other
that
u-
house in the middle of that floodplain.
Well, and the other unique portion of this right now is currently with the firm maps that we have in place now, there is no floodplain here. This is just information that we know is coming with the revised mapping that Stark County has done.
Okay.
And, Mr. Chairman, it's better that it's disclosed ahead of time and the city
Correct.
knows about it. I really respect that, because as a realtor, it's pretty hard to sell. You sell the lot and you don't disclose it, and then they find out, and you're right, it's very expensive to get flood insurance, so.
And I don't think that's anyone's intent here to go down that path. So just keeping in communication and making sure that, you know, as we get towards the point where we're starting to receive building permits, we have that information in our files so that when we get those applications in, we'll be able to address what those elevations need to be to help keep those homes out of the floodplain. What will probably happen, like Andrew said, that they would have to come in and go through a process with FEMA to get that removed. So they might end up having to do flood insurance in the beginning with this process.
Sure. I think, sounds like you guys can work out that detail.
Yep.
Okay. For the final plat, we should,
And Mr. Chairman, just to reiterate too, the applicant just informed me, as he sells lots, that will be part of his agreement, that, you know, he will disclose the floodplain. He doesn't plan to hide this at all. Our thought is, though, if the floodplain's in a backyard, we don't necessarily want to spend the cost of filling that floodplain. And that's kind of how this condition reads today, so.
yeah. Anyone else have any concerns with this? Mr. Hadley?
Nope.
Okay.
I think just to finalize, there's been a lot of talk on this road. I just want everybody here to consider how traffic is going to flow. You know, Palm Beach Road today is a very long dead-end road that leads nowhere. People coming in and out of this are going to be coming southwest and northeast. If you look at how traffic will flow, I don't see a lot of the people coming through Palm Beach Road shining their lights into these lots across the street. Most people will be heading out towards State Avenue. I think the flow of traffic is going to be kind of generally that direction. I can understand their concerns, but we do have, to make this subdivision work, a limited window where that road can fall. So I think if there's a lot line that we can hit or something like that, or a garage instead of somebody's living room window, I think we can make that happen. And we can definitely work with those adjacent owners, I hope, to come to the best location for that road.
Okay. Sounds okay to me and you. Anyone else have any concerns? All right.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Frank before he walks away, commissioners? Okay, thank you, Andrew. All right, with that, we will move to the public hearing regarding this preliminary plat. If anyone in the public or online has any questions or concerns regarding the preliminary plat for the Stable Estates, please step forward to the podium, state your name, or call into 456-7006. Anyone in the public?
Morning.
Morning.
My name is Ken Mayer. I'm a resident of 468 Palm Beach Road. And as a resident, and not that it holds much weight, but I would be opposed to the whole subdivision, just as the aspect of, we've been on that road for 22 years. We've enjoyed the privacy of it. It's something that we haven't really found anywhere else. If it was to go through, though, I would agree with some of the things that were said before. We have a lot of people that do a lot of walking and things like that. I think either a side road or a sidewalk or some kind of walkway would be, if we're trying to accommodate both parties here. And as far as the road, you know, I'm not an engineer or anything, but I understand that the way it's set up now, there's probably limited options of what you can and cannot do, but I'm wondering if you were to eliminate a couple lots, if that wouldn't change some things. Like eliminating 11 and 12 and coming through, or something like that. I would just like to see them look at all options, even if it means reducing a couple lots to accommodate those people that have been there for all their life and generations and generations. So.
Thank you for your comments. And anyone else have any comments regarding this preliminary plat application? Mr. Pasnick.
As I said before, I don't think there's any reason that this road can't go in between the lots and use the existing approach where the house is right now, Keston. There's a lot there, which is 11. That's next to the drainage ditch. That's where the road should be.
Okay.
Mark that down.
Thank you, Mr. Pasnick. Anyone else in the public have any questions or concerns regarding this plat?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time. I guess my comments would be...
Can you state your name, please?
Oh, sorry. Don't do this too often. My name is Rafe Espinoza. I live down on Palm Beach Road. My comments would be more so on public safety and installing some sort of walkway or walking path for kids and adults that are on this road. With the increased traffic, as well as the increased folks in this area, you'll need some place for these folks to recreate. My kids are on it every night. There's other neighbors' kids are on it every night. So if you could please look at that in your plans, we definitely appreciate that. And then the other questions I had was, is there terms and conditions for building specs or allotment of trees, and what's the buildings look like? And forgive me, didn't have some of the documentation that these folks had going into this. And then is there alternative plats provided, or is this the only plat that was provided with that access road? I'm assuming that that's a issue for some folks. Was there alternative plat proposed, or is this the only one?
It was the only one, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
That's all I
Espinoza.
had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Espinoza. Andrew, did you want to address any of this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I think the existing approach, we've talked a lot about coming off the existing driveway to the north.
That'd be what, Lot 4, is that my understanding?
Yeah, and
Okay.
it doesn't bring us the access we need to the southern lots. It really it's restricted by the house and current garages up there. If you're familiar with the topography, right behind that house, there's probably a 20-foot grade drop. It's just not feasible, and it does not really provide the access that we need for this development. As far as the sidewalk, that's something that's very challenging to do on a rural street section. You have limited right-of-way width, especially with Palm Beach Road. You have ditches. There's not sufficient space to construct sidewalks on these areas. They're in the bottom of a ditch. It's difficult on a rural road section, and not something that's typical in a rural subdivision around the city that I've seen anywhere. So I don't know that we'd be agreeable to that. Again, I think you may even see less traffic on this stretch of road. We're putting in a connection to State Avenue. I don't foresee people driving north around the old clay factory and coming back onto State Avenue. They're going to take this new shortcut out to State Avenue, and they will likely see reduced traffic along the lots north of our access road. So I think those concerns, although we do have a few extra driveways proposed, I think a lot of the people to the south, there's probably 30 or 40 houses along Palm Beach Road to the south. I would expect most of that existing traffic is going to use this new connection that's shorter and quicker for them.
Thank you, Mr. Schrank. Anyone else in the public have any questions or comments regarding this application? Please step forward. Seeing or hearing none, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners, any questions, concerns for anyone that has spoke today? What are your wishes?
I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plot application, PLP-001-21, with the above listed and corrected conditions, okay, of approval and as depicted in Attachment A, as meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare.
No motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? I think you guys were all agreeable to some of the changes that we made in the conditions, Mr. Hadley.
Yeah, we'll have to note those in the minutes and then update it in the...
Hopefully Sylvia was listening over there. No, I'm just kidding.
It doesn't, it just doesn't go to the city commission, the plat doesn't. So we will make sure we rework that and put it in the minutes correctly.
And just for everybody here, can you reiterate the timing of when this is going to be, the next phase is, I would imagine there'll be some people that will want to be here for the next public hearing, so.
Right.
Assuming that everything goes as planned, can you just give them a little timing here before we vote?
My next deadline for this next meeting that we can make is April 2nd. And that would be for the May meeting.
And just so everybody knows that would be May 19th at the same time.
Right. So I think we've got to get comments back and adjustments and all of that, and I'm assuming that's what you're going to shoot for?
Correct. Ideally, that would be our deadline. If we do need, I believe one of your comments as well was to resubmit this to those parties for comment. That can take some time. So it may be May before we're submitting for the July planning and zoning meeting.
It's always a month behind, so April for May, May for June.
There you go.
So, yeah, so.
I would expect May is.
So best case scenario, it'll be May 19th. Worst case scenario, will probably be June 16th. Is that?
That would be our intent.
Okay. So everybody is aware.
And everybody will receive a notice again. If
Okay.
you received a notice the first time, you'll receive a notice for this.
And I guess just to clarify that, as Walter indicated, I believe the zoning and the flume will go before City Commission for public hearing prior to that in the next coming weeks here.
We can.
Or would
You
you hold
did
them off?
suggest you might want to hold off on.
And that may be appropriate, so.
And do it all at
It's
once.
up to you. I mean, we can move forward and do the flume and the zone change and have it done, but Andrew's point, I think, is that if it changes, then some of the legals and some of the zoning, just like the zoning that we just did at City Commission last night.
Sure.
The line could not match where it actually is. So my suggestion, if you don't want that entitlement zoning right now, this day, I would suggest that we wait until the final plat goes to the City Commission.
I would actually prefer that.
And we could do-
We do it all at once if you guys are agreeable to that.
Mr. Chairman, I guess our preference would be to do the first hearing, just to make sure that goes well.
Okay.
That City Commission's on board as well, and that gives us the confidence that everything's gonna get approved. So if we could do the first hearing of those applications as soon as we can,
Okay.
I think the final hearing, we would be okay going with this plat.
So the first reading of this then would be April 6th at City Commission, is that correct?
Yep.
So everybody knows, first reading of this, these amendments would be on the April 6th City Commission agenda. So it would also be a public hearing, possibly, or would it not?
We can do it.
Usually we do it on the
sometimes we
second
did,
reading,
Sometimes we
yeah.
did,
So-
sometimes we don't, but.
You would still have the right to come to city commission and make comments during the public comments phase if you guys would like to attend, so.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a clarification for Ms. Winko to, so if we have that meeting, is there a problem with us holding off if they come in May or June with the plat? So a second reading not happening until June or July?
Mr. Hadley, that should not be an issue.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Don't know, never had that before, so.
All right, everybody's, sounds okay with that then?
Thank you,
All right.
Commissioners.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any other discussion, Commissioners, before we vote? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. All right, thank you, everyone. We will move on to item 4 on our agenda for the day, public issues of city concern that are not on the agenda. If there's anything that is not on our agenda today that anybody in the public would like to come forward and discuss, this is the time. Or anybody online watching can call into 456-7006. Anyone in the public or online? Seeing none, we will close the public comments section of the agenda and move on to item 5. This would be for commissioners. Anything that's not on our agenda you guys, the commission would like to address or bring up at this time? Hearing none, we will close that section and move on to item 6, which is our work session non-action items, and that would be our comp plan rewrite. And that will be handled by Director Hadley and County Planner Josephson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start it off. I'll make sure Stephen's still awake over there. I asked Stephen, we first of all received a grant. Linda Carlson and I worked on a grant to rewrite our comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan is dated, supposed to be reviewed every 5 years. It was adopted in 2013, hasn't been adopted, reviewed. We picked apart a few things. Stephen's been working away on code amendments for years, but we kind of need a whole rewrite. And so I asked Stephen to go through the comp plan, and he did. He did a very good job of summarizing each chapter. And in your OneNote this month, you've got a copy of the comp plan in there. So you can kind of look through there. No, we're not going to go through all of this today. Unless Stephen would like to go through all of these line by line.
Page 1, paragraph 1.
But,
Bible.
but I just kind of to put you on notice. I mean, we were basically at the city commission level and with the Mr. Winningham. You know, our focus is to update the comprehensive plan because it affects many more departments than just planning and then the planning commission, and we need to get a handle on what our projections are. I believe this year we're supposed to be at about 35,000 people in Dickinson, and we're not. But we have done some good things. We've upgraded our infrastructure. We probably have infrastructure. Gary's not here, but Loretta probably can address it. We probably have infrastructure that can handle 45,000 people in the right places. And so, you know, that's one of the things from a land use standpoint that Stephen and I have talked about for a year and a half now at least, is that we're going to look at our flume map. We were going to do that internally and just readjust some of those areas and some of those designations because some of those things weren't real appropriate, at least in 21 standards. Back in 13, they probably made sense because we were blowing up and there was a lot of things and we were saying, oh my God, yeah, we have to have places to go. But right now, if you remember these maps that we did last year, they haven't changed a whole lot. I mean, you know, we're going to do another one, but you know, it's a labor-intensive process, and we probably still have over 200 lots of commercial available. We probably still have close to 1,000 single family, with the ones we've created, and then, you know, sure, we've built some, but, you know, it probably really hasn't changed all that much. Locations have changed maybe a little bit. So do we really need to expand and then have more investment for infrastructure outside of our boundary? And what we're going to do is a new urban service boundary and really kind of tie to it. And if you remember, Engineer Kubis brought that up and said, hey, we need to draw a line somewhere. And if we go outside of that line, it needs to be without our support, without our input as far as money and effort, because we have done that. We've upgraded services all over this community. And now it's time to say, okay, all these folks need to take advantage of it, or have, like the Stable Estates folks, they're on the outside edge of it where it would be very costly to add that to their development, that they are just going to wind up being an ETZ type development, and that's okay. That's kind of just the direction we need to know, but literally I'd like to see a line in the sand, if you will, that maybe is a little flexible, but not as flexible as it has been. So, Stephen, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that. Stephen did a good rundown of that.
Let's see, it's on now. Thank you, Planning Director Hadley, Steve Josephson, staff. And I was around not when the comprehensive plan was started. I came here about halfway through the process for it. If you look back at the comprehensive plan as it was approved back in 2013, so many of the projections were based upon the expansion of the oil industry and what was going on back then. I was reading a section yesterday that anticipated there would be between 32,000 to 40,000 wells, being drilled and serviced in this area, and we know that that's not happening. And just to give a comprehensive plan is a snapshot in time. Based upon what was going on back in 2012, it was anticipated that there would be almost 40,000 permanent residents living in Stark County by this year. I checked with the 2018 census. Their estimate was 22,739. So you can see how these population projections can affect the decisions, the recommendations that the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to make, and the actions that the City Commission is going to take. I think the thing that staff had talked about really focusing in on was seeing how the population is really going to change, and this is a good time because the new census figures will be coming out. Looking at local economy and economic development, and I believe that was part of the grant focus, from the Department of Commerce, and also the land use section. We do now have a fairly extensive vacant land survey that can be incorporated into the comprehensive plan, into this chapter. And the other part to really look at too is housing. That's always housing. Here in North Dakota, always housing. Is there enough, and is it of the type that accommodates the population as it is right now? Keep in mind, when this plan was done back in 12 and 13, there was a fairly large temporary population. In fact, they were expecting about 8,000 a population of 8,000 temporary residents in the area. I'm not sure where that's at, but that would sure be good. That would be good to know. On the other hand, this update will also highlight some of the accomplishments that the city has done since the plan was adopted. And I know a few years ago I went through here and did note there were a number of things the city has done, a number of positive things. There were a number of things that had been accomplished to make the quality of life in Dickinson, to continue to improve the quality of life here in Dickinson and in Stark County. So the terms of the how the update is going to be done, Mr. Hadley and Mr. Winningham have been discussing that, and I'm sure staff will be coming back to future meetings to discuss that, and also to bring projects, to bring progress on this forward. And if you have any questions, Walter and I are here to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Josephson, Mr. Hadley. Commissioners, have any questions?
No, this is really outdated.
Yeah. And this discussion started when Mr. Winningham came on board. You know, we based a lot of our zoning and
I know.
decisions on this comp plan that we are not really at. I mean, we've fallen off the cliff on some of the things, so.
Well, we've just grown a
you know.
different way.
Yeah, I mean, it just hasn't grown like it was proposed, it was anticipated with, you know, the oil boom and everything we had, so. Kudos to you guys for finding a grant to get us to cover some of the costs.
It'll help. It's not gonna pay for it.
Yeah, it won't pay for it all, but at least it's something, so. We'll be looking forward to getting that updated and.
Well, we want to include you, and we wanted to make sure that you're aware that this is where we are. This is kind of the beginning stages. That work plan that I do for you every year, that basically shows the projects and that, you can probably throw it away now at this point, because Stephen is going to be devoted to comp plan, and then when I can, I'm going to be helping supplement that. We'll be probably going to a consultant that will help us update some of the number crunching and some of the other stuff. Stephen's list is a very comprehensive list. Stephen is a very comprehensive guy. So we may pick off and highlight what the most important sections are to update first, and maybe what we'd rather have a consultant update versus Stephen start working on. So we need to have that dialogue too. But as we do that, we do think about how the public engagement, I know it was a very public process. I think Mr. Winningham, he snubbed me today. He was going to be here to talk about this, but to plans on not having as much public input, just because we are just basically updating. We're not just starting from scratch and saying, here we are, this is Dickinson. We're saying, okay, this is what we haven't done, this is the population that we don't have, these are the things that we've accomplished, this is where we want to move forward. So I think that, you know, there will be public engagement, but probably not to the level that there was if you were here when that was going on. So.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the one thing I wanted to add was we probably need to put this plug in for the state, but this grant was made available through the Main Street program of the State Department of Commerce. You know, so people ask about the Main Street program and what it's been doing. You know, this is an example. This is an example of a project that will be funded through that program.
And we've gotten 2 grants from them, actually. So I've got a grant for the downtown stuff. So what's smaller?
Okay.
For flower pots, and there's flower pots you see going, they're popping up downtown and that stuff. So anyway.
Great.
So our new city administrator has been getting these grants or applying for them?
I think
You
Mr.
guys
Hadley
have-
and Linda and.
Good.
Linda and I
You-
did this one.
When you do this, do you engage like Stark Development too? Have them input this, help with you?
I'm sorry.
Do you engage Ryan Jellick with Stark Development when you do part of this study?
When we do this update? Oh, yes, most
Yes,
definitely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Most of the stakeholders would be involved, I would guess. So.
Okay.
And they're probably not the only economic stakeholders that would be involved, but absolutely.
And we want private. We want private input too. We want private companies that are expanding. You know, we're not all about, we're lucky in Dickinson that we're a little more diversified than the rest of western North Dakota hub areas, and that we do have some diversification. So the manufacturing, the ag is still a huge part of our economy and our community. So I think we need to incorporate those more actually in the plan. So.
Okay.
Good.
Any other items, commissioners? I'd like to thank Mr. Schrank for bringing in the audience today with him.
We haven't had a crowd.
Anyway, all right, we will, if there's nothing else, we will look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.